Hello, today's video is on growing indoor plants, and it's such a fabulous afternoon in the garden that we've come outside to talk about growing indoors. Now, your home will have a number of rooms. You'll have a kitchen, you'll have a bathroom, you'll have a bedroom, and you'll have a living room. And yes, you can grow plants in all of those situations. So as we wander through this video today, I'm going to show you types of things that you may want to grow inside your home. But the big question is, why would you want to grow plants indoors? Well, apart from the health benefits of growing plants and make you feel good about interacting them, touching them and looking at them, plants actually purify the air around us inside. We have lots of devices in our homes now, electrical devices, televisions, radios, even the lights that we sit underneath at night are exuding noxious chemicals that actually can affect our health and well-being. And if you've got plants there, they actually help you to extract those and provide oxygen back for very, very little effort, folks, on our part. So that's why you need plants within your indoor environments. And as I said earlier, it just makes you feel good interacting and being in touch with nature. So we're going to look at individually plants you could grow in the rooms that you have in your home, whether it be in a city apartment, a terraced house, or perhaps a palatial mansion in the countryside. You'll want plants inside and indoors to be with you. So let's have a look at the range that we've got available today. So to begin with, when you're asleep at night, what you really need is plants that are providing you good oxygen to actually sleep with, so that you'll get a really good sound night's sleep. And the mother-in-law's tongue, or Sansevieria as we call it, is one of the best plants. 65% oxygen this plant gives back to you for the carbon dioxide that it actually breathes in. So if any plant above all that we look at today, mother-in-law's tongue is one that you really want to go for in your bedroom. You can use this in your living room as well, but mother-in-law's tongue, sometimes called the snake plant as well, it's got this really sharp pointed bit right at the end. Really simple to grow, just water and off you go. That will do the job for you without any trouble at all. Also in your bedroom at night, philodendrons, and these are training plants, so you can pop these on the top of your wardrobe and these will trail down for you. But again, you get around about 50% oxygen back from a philodendron, and again, really simple to look after. These will stand a shadier environment. Plants do give us lots of advice on where they will actually grow by looking at their leaf structure. So this is glossy, so any light that comes into a particular area with this plant bounces off onto other leaves, so that'll stand a shadier environment. And then we've got this wonderful Cordyline type, and again, in a bedroom at night, look at that, that's absolutely superb, folks, for lovely variegated foliage. Now, if you like your steamy baths and you know, your steamy showers, well, you know, spider plants, chlorophytum as it's called, there they are. And these, if you know spider plants, fantastic plantlets come from spider plants that just droop down, and you know, a wonderful plant to have in your bathroom. What about ferns? Ferns naturally come from, you know, really hot and humid areas, and ferns will do the job for you, no problem at all. A wonderful plant for you to have in the bathroom. And then the third recommendation is the good old Tradescantia, folks. Look at this Tradescantia, very similar but different in leaf shape to the spider plant. But Tradescantias, again, pop them on a high windowsill or on your bathroom windowsill and kitchens, and they will just drape down, and you get lovely purple flowers on your Tradescantias as well. Now, moving on to your living room, and this is a tiny plant, but this is called a weeping fig, and these actually grow into really large statuesque trees and can cost up to 40 or 50 pounds. This just happens to be a cutting that I've actually taken and got to root, and that is a wonderful talking point in your living room. And how about some smaller plants? These are called polka dot plants, hypoestes, And once again, look at the foliage on these, folks. You've got brilliant reds, you know, you've got variegated foliages, and they will look wonderful in your living room in a little pot by the side of your TV. As well as things like streptocarpus and things like African violets that can add to a pot display like that. Now, if you've got really hot and arid areas, then effectively something like a conservatory or even a porch, how about a phoenix palm? And here you go, wonderful phoenix palm, wonderful spiky foliage. You need to be careful with these because these do bite, they are spiky, but it gives you excitement and it looks absolutely wonderful when once that is underway and actually growing. And then to top that up, there is the subtropical Bromeliad, or the urn plant, and the way this is actually watered is right down the centre. And yes, this is semi-carnivorous, so it actually feeds itself by flies actually dropping into the central core, and it munches on it. So there you go, folks. There's a whole range of plants that you can grow in your environments at home. Things for your bedroom, things for your living room, things that you can grow in a really hot conservatory. So now we're going to quickly move on to maintenance of your house plants and how you should actually be maintaining your plants that you've got in your houses. So we're going to start by potting, folks, and we're going to look at this phoenix palm because it does really need to be in another pot. Now, I've bought a trendy pot, so here's my trendy pot, and we're going to repot the phoenix palm in a trendy pot. Now, the pot that you pot up into should actually be a couple of inches bigger than the pot that it's in originally. So there it is, look. So it's a couple of inches bigger, okay? But because there's no holes in the bottom of this pot, we need, first of all, to include some drainage. So first of all, we're going to pop some gravel in the bottom. And here we go. Here it is, look, folks. Pop some gravel in the bottom of the pot. And now we need some compost, as with all good. But we need to make sure that our compost is really free draining. So that's a little bit claggy at the moment. So we're going to use a little bit of vermiculite. And here it comes. And vermiculite is a natural compound. It's a mica, so it's naturally occurring. And what it does is it gives our compost the ability to be quite free draining, and it opens up the compost. And we just mix that in, guys. Okay, we get that mixing through, and that's wonderful stuff now. Now what we do is we drop a little bit of compost into the pot to begin with. And then we'll just check that our phoenix palm is around about level with the top of the pot, when it's slightly lower than level. Okay, and now we tap our palm out of its pot. Now it might be a little bit. There you go, look. I thought it was going to be a little bit anxious about coming out of its pot, but look at the root system on that. Lovely and well watered, look. You can tell by the colour as it runs down that it is really well watered. Now we're just going to pop that into its pot and nestle it down. And then effectively we're just going to really pop some compost around the outside and use a scooping motion around the outside. And this is the technique that you'll use for most of your indoor plants. So just scoop around the outside and then turn. And then chuck the compost round, consolidate it around, and then push that well down until you get to the top, and leave a little gap at the top. And then to help it along its way, we're just going to finish that off with a little bit of decorative gravel. And give it a tap. And I've got some decorative gravel here, look. And this is not just decorative, it acts as a mulch. So actually, as we're popping this on, what we're doing is we're helping it with watering. So effectively, a mulch on top of any plant will stop the water from evaporating from the surface, and if this is in a hot conservatory, then it's going to help this plant to actually grow and establish itself. So there you go, that's how to repot a house plant. Okay, and there are no drainage holes in there, but there is drainage in the actual bottom of the pot for the water to get away from the root system. And what a wonderful phoenix palm. That is going to double and treble in size and will look an absolutely gorgeous plant. And you know, it'll sit in your conservatory for most of its life. So there you go. Now we're going to look at a really lovely plant that most people want to grow but think is really technical to grow, and that is the orchid. And the orchid is called Cymbidium, and this is the orchid we normally see in our supermarkets. And as you can see, it's got these wonderful flowers. Now here's a fascinating fact: orchids outnumber us by about 4 to 1. So there are 4 orchids on the earth to every one of us. We're still discovering them, folks. So you know, they really like a very barky compost, and this is where people tend to get a little bit worried, because it's bark in the compost, and they have aerial roots as well, which actually photosynthesize. Normally the leaves photosynthesize. So the number of problems that people have with orchids, number one, fall into a range of different categories. 2 main ones: how do we water these, and how much water do we actually give them? Where do they like to live? And how do we feed them? So let's deal with them in order. Okay, so there was 3 actually, wasn't there, not 2. So first of all, how do we water them? Well, if you're worried about watering them, there's a really simple trick. It's called ice cubes. Okay, so if you pop once a week 2 ice cubes on the surface of your orchid, there you go, and just let them defrost, because orchids don't like water on the leaf, because it can cause leaf scorch. You can even put your fertilizer, which is half strength tomerite or tomato food, into your ice cubes and feed them that way. And there you go, once a week, 2 ice cubes on the surface of your orchid, and effectively you've watered it. If you pop your half strength tomato feed and freeze it, again once a week during the normal growing season, and you've effectively fed your orchid, and you've avoided the splash on the leaves, haven't you? So there you go. Now orchids like bright light, but they don't like direct light, so never put them on a windowsill, but they like to be in a bright lit room that's fairly comfortably warm, a bit like you and I. If we're comfortable in a room, then your orchid is going to be comfortable, and that's as simple as it gets with orchids, folks. So water them 2 ice cubes once a week, and during main growing season 1 ice cube with your tomerite or tomato mix in there once a week, and it's job done. Okay, come to repot them, not a problem at all. You just need to mix some bark in with the compost that you actually use, and they will be as happy as Larry. And look at the buds that's got to come on this, folks. We've got some wonderful flower buds ready to come. And then you know, if we take a close-up of the actual flower itself, absolutely gorgeous, and you can understand why people are so fascinated by orchids, can't you? So we'll pop the Cymbidium down because the sunlight is very bright out here, so I'm just going to pop it to one side. And now we're going to move on to other maintenance tasks. So obviously leaves on plants need to be cleaned and buffed, and effectively you can do that just with a cloth. Okay, but glossy leaves are a lot better than really dull leaves. Now here is a florist's trick for you, and we've got a little cup, and I've got some mayonnaise. If you've got mayonnaise for your houseplant, you don't need sprays. So we drop a little bit of mayonnaise into the bottom of the pot, and then we take a paper towel, and watch this, guys. We dip our paper towel into the mayonnaise. Okay, now here is a fairly dull leaf, and we rub the mayonnaise on, give it a thick coating, and then we take our other, leave it for a moment or two, take our other And look at that. Once it's all off, if we compare that to the leaves, and it just gets glossier and glossier, look, as you actually wipe it off. And it's a really good florist's trick for a florist's window. So if you imagine before, look, and after, you see how glossy that is? A banana skin will do that for you as well. So if you have a banana, then effectively the inside of the skin, you can actually wipe your leafy houseplants off with that, and you're also feeding them with a banana skin because it's got magnesium in there, okay? And the shinier the leaf is, the more light it will bounce around its environment, so you're also helping plants to actually feed themselves as well. What about that for a really excellent trick? So use your mayonnaise to actually gloss your leaves, and effectively you're helping plants to feed themselves. Now the other thing that you might have to do is to actually increase the humidity. And humidity, if you don't know what it is water in the air. So if you've got a dry environment, then you may just have to mist your leaves, especially if you start to get brown tips on the end of the leaves of your houseplant. And you simply just take a mister bottle and once or twice a day, just literally spray over your plants. And there you go. Now what that does, folks, as you can see, is it stops transpiration. So transpiration is effectively a plant sweating, and it stops it from using its water supply. So if you do that a couple of times a week, then effectively you've helped your plants to actually help themselves along the day, and the humidity and the conditions I've actually got to cope with. Certainly the cymbidium will actually need that doing to it, the orchid, once or twice a day if you've got it in a fairly dry environment. So now time for our challenge. So we've looked at a range of houseplants and a range of environments that they can actually grow into. But now for you and your children, okay, we're going to give you a flavour of the Arizona desert. So something that's fascinated all my horticultural life is things like cactus and succulents and things like that. So you don't need a whole massive area to grow these. In fact, a really sunny hot windowsill is what we're going to go for here. And what you will need is a range of plants, cacti, living stones, these sorts of things, and you can buy these from your local garden centre. You will need, a little trough, or this can be an old dinner plate, it can be whatever you want it to be, but it just needs to be an environment where we can actually start to establish these plants. And we're going to do a little bit of landscaping here, folks. So we're going to pop the tray on one side, and then we're going to pop our plants on the other, and effectively have a little bit of fun, but get the children involved with this because it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful fun. So to begin with, we need a really, really, really well drained compost, and the compost that we mixed a little bit earlier is what we're going to use. And in fact, I'm going to add a little bit more vermiculite to that so that we can actually get it even more free draining. Now these plants are going to be happy, really happy in their environment. So we'll mix it through. And now we're just going to fill that trough up with that compost. Now it doesn't need to be particularly wet, but do break up any lumps. And we're going to fill that up almost to the top. So we're going to leave about a quarter to half an inch from the top of the actual pot container. Now, here's where the landscaping comes in. I have here some slate, and there you go. I just dropped that on the front. Now I'll kneel down a little bit here, and all we're going to do is we're going to insert the slate so that we've got almost like dinosaur scales sticking above the actual compost. So this is where the children will love it, and it doesn't matter where you put them, really. and how many you actually pop in there. But you know, try and keep to an odd number if you can, because in landscape design it seems to, and garden design, it seems to work better if you work in odd numbers. Don't ask me why. I've been a garden designer for a long time and I've never known the answer. And then we can pop one sticking out like that, you see. Okay, and now the other fun bit comes where we're actually going to pop our plants in. Now we need to be very, very careful with things like cacti, and they're a fantastic plant, folks, because they've modified themselves to live in the hottest parts of the world. The spines, which are a deterrent for animals, are actually modified leaves, because if they had broad leaves, effectively they would just burn up in the hot summer sun. And then the green stem acts as a leaf, and they actually photosynthesize at night when it's actually cool. You cannot touch the spines, folks, because if you do, they've got a little barb on the end of them and they can actually go septic. So here's a really neat trick for you to use to actually extract the cacti from their pots. First of all, remove the label, and then secondly, we take a piece of towel and we wrap it over, and then we effectively wrap that around the cacti so we're not touching it. And then if we pull tight enough, it comes out of its pot, look. Okay, so that's what you need to do so you don't touch your cacti. Now what we're going to do is, I'm going to say this is my front and this is my back, and I'm literally going to put some cacti around the pot itself. Now look at this one with almost fur. It's fuzzy, look how fuzzy that is. It's wonderful fuzz. Okay, we've got a prickly pear now. So here's a prickly pear, and that you'll see in the hottest deserts of the world. And then here we have some living stones, look. These are wonderful plants that flower and just live in barely very, very minimal compost. And then we'll pop another living stone in there, and then I think what we'll do is we'll go for perhaps one more little succulent. We'll go for a different shape and a different texture, if I can get it out of the pot itself, the container. Okay, and we'll drop those in. So now with our cacti, we're going to do the dangerous ones first. Okay, we're just going to lift around, make a mark. Can you see that? So we're going to make a mark with our pot, lift it up so we've grabbed it, and then we're just going to edge that compost away and pop it in place, look. And virtually not touching that cacti at all. Now the Apuntia, or the prickly pear, look, if we come to do this, we do it diagonally, look. So we actually make our mark again, and then we can hold and pull, look. Make a hole, pop it in, work it downwards. And you know, when you're doing this with children, you can talk to them about the desert, and you can talk to them about the environment and how plants have adapted to a particular environment. These plants, you know, as I said, have adapted their leaves, because their leaves would just burn up if they actually had broad leaves like our trees in this country. They actually are, you know, 99.9% water. And this can go on a sunny windowsill at the end of the day. Once it's done, it can go into a children's bedroom and requires very minimal maintenance. Not a lot of water required at all for this. Pop the living stones in. And for the outlay of around about £5 to £8, depending on what you actually go for, you know, I think that's pretty competitive, I must admit. Now, we can't just leave it there, because the desert doesn't show all its compost, does it? So we're just going to top that off with a little bit of gravel. And again, you can talk to children about what type of gravel we should use, but I've gone for some pink horticultural grit, and then we just literally feed that into the planter itself and around our plants. And then just literally pat it down. And again, it gives drainage. And a simple display like this, as I said, can be on a bedroom windowsill, it can be on a main living room windowsill, it can even be on a coffee table in an office, can't it, if that's what you choose it to be. But then tidy up around the edges, just make it look nice and neat and tidy, perhaps a little bit more there, look. And there you go. There is your cacti garden, okay, that will grow on and start to enlarge and basically cover the actual container itself. Very little maintenance required. We all know the cacti like to grow in very, very arid environments. You've got living stones there, you've got prickly pears there, and you've got a range of other cacti that will really do you proud. And don't forget, cacti are going to flower, so you're going to get some stunning flowers on there. So there you go. That's virtually the end of this video. We've looked at plants. We've looked at the reasons why you should grow house plants indoors. A range of plants that you can grow in various locations and situations. How to pot up your plants into nice, wonderful containers. How to mist them. We've looked at the cymbidium and basically how to water and feed that. And then finally, your challenge from this video is to go out there and create a nice arid cacti garden. So here's the challenge to you guys. Have a look around the insides of your houses, your apartments, or wherever you're living. Can you pop some plants in there? They'll make your lives a lot happier, they'll make you feel a lot better about things, and most of all, they are purifying the air for you. So go on, grow some plants indoors.